Welcome to this week's episode. Before we get into it, this episode has brief mentions of suicide throughout that may be triggering for some listeners.
I'm talking about, you're talking about, we're talking about just gay stuff.
Oh, were you not ready?
No, I wasn't. I didn't realise you had hit that button.
Welcome back to another episode of Just Gay Stuff. My name is Jess.
And I'm Lauren.
And boy, do we have an amazing episode for you today.
Sure do.
We're so humbled to have him and have him tell his stories down the microphone with us. You probably know him best from his appearances on Big Brother, but there are so many more amazing achievements and we can't wait to talk about them. So this week, we are so happy to introduce Farmer Dave.
G'day. Thanks for having me, lady. Really appreciate it.
Humbled to have you,
Yeah,
Dave.
we're super humbled to have you here. Thank you so much.
So it is 100% undeniable that in Australia, we all fell in love with you when you first graced the screens on Big Brother in 2006, on the 6th season. And since then, you've gone on to do so many amazing things, and I can't wait to get into them. But to name a few to start, you're a dog trainer, you're a youth worker, you're an advocate, you've danced with the stars, you've hosted things like the ckers. I know that that's true because I saw you there. You're a dad, and according to records, you hold the record for first live gay kiss on Australian television. So that's an amazing feat.
Yes, yeah. All the mountains were taken, so I took that one.
Yeah,
Nice. I
That's
love
the
it.
best one to take, I reckon. But I had to write all those things down. You've done so many things. It's amazing.
It is.
Yeah, I've had a fabulous, almost fictitious life, and it's when I look back at even the last week, let alone the last decade or the last 30 years, yeah, I'm just so fortunate, and sometimes truth is stranger than fiction, right? Like you wouldn't half the stuff I've done, let alone believe it in real life. So I'm very, very, very fortunate, but it's a simple case of if there's something to do, you might as well get in and do it, right? And that was the thing about Big Brother, you know. It was, for me, it was very much so I needed someone to make changes. I needed someone to have a conversation with Australia. I needed someone to have a conversation with me. I needed someone to make me feel less alone.
Yeah.
2006 or 2005 and the lead up to that 2006, there was a real pushback against LGBT rights and advancements that were happening in the world and in the media. You know, it was coming from, I suppose, Hollywood, and it was coming from political advocates and activists. And then there was a real pushback. And it was the time that the Anglican Church was breaking apart with the ordination of gay clergy in North America. It was the time when movies were finally celebrating gay love stories as love stories, not just the, oh, you know, they're gay and, you know, it's all, can't show anything. You know, it was Brokeback Mountain time. And, there was a real push by a lot of Australians, a lot of politicians against it.
Yeah.
Not dissimilar to what's happening now. And but it was probably a lot more impactful back then because we had so few rights. And I was still a man when many of the parts of Australia were it was illegal to be gay. You'll lose your job absolutely legally for being gay. And, you know, people were being bashed left, right and centre and murdered for being gay, but it wasn't a thing and it wasn't something that anyone would worry about or concern themselves with, especially in the bigger world, let alone the family unit or community. So it was a really strange time back then, but it was a case of I needed someone to be that person and what else can you do but be that person, right? And when you can point at a problem anywhere, be it rubbish on a beach or be it youth issues or be it an unruly child in a comedy show, you know, you can point the finger, but you've always got to remember the one thing that I was told by a nun when I was getting sex educated when I was 8 years old in a little bush Roman Catholic church.
Wow.
Nun said, whenever you point a finger, remember, one finger points to God and three fingers point back at you.
Wow.
And you can always think about it in those relativities, that you are 3 more times able to solve a problem than anyone else, and let alone God. And that was amazing coming from a nun who obviously it's all about God for them. She very much so imprinted upon me that that you are the solution, and if you see a problem, then solve it.
Yeah.
That's why I went on Big Brother. There you go.
Well, that's great.
Very long, a very simple question. But yeah, it was very much so a strange place back in 2005, 2006 when the lead up occurred. And I didn't like the Australia that I was living in. I'd gotten to the point where I was comfortable with my own self, and I didn't want to have the option that I was told was my only option, and that was to kill myself or to move away from where I lived and where I existed in my community. And I thought that there was a third option. The third option was, no, I can live my life. I can be with a person of the same sex because that's who I am. I have struggled, and I have held a gun to my head, and I've been on balconies that many times, and I've driven towards trees on lonely highways, as so many young people have done and older people have done over the generations that we've lived on this continent. And I thought, no, I get to live too. I have 10, and they all get to cherish their loved ones, and they get to be respected in their relationships. What about me? And, you know, there was a very, very famous Australian Idol that said, what about me? And I'm driving my tractor, and I'm listening on one hand to politicians saying that gays don't exist in the bush, and then I'm listening to other people in my religion, the Anglican faith, saying that being gay is an absolute sin and you should never act upon it. And then on the other hand, they're playing Shannon Knoll saying, what about me? And it all came together for me to say, well, I'm the solution. David, get up there and have a conversation with Australia. And the best place to have a conversation is in their own homes, through their television, because back then reality TV was the biggest thing around, and it was genuine, it was authentic, and it was real, and it was live. And for me, that was the greatest way to direct the message to the people that mattered, and that was mums, dads, brothers, sisters, aunties, uncles, employees, employers, every single human being. And back then it was the vast majority of Australia would sit down and watch the countless hours every single day of every single week for 100 days. And so that's why I went on the show.
I think that's so beautiful, because I was like, oh my God, I can't believe, you found in yourself that you wanted to make a change for the world, for the better.
It's commendable because of everything you can be up against by being that voice for people who, are in fear of being that voice. So you kind of took that fear away. And so, that's really, really great. And so that's what made you go on there. Did you always have that as your main goal, that you were going to come out on national television? Or did you ever, get to a point where you're like, oh, maybe I won't, or maybe it's not the right time? Or did you just trust that your housemates were going to let you soar?
It's a really good question. My mum gave me a book when I was going through a really, really terrible teenagehood. I was at an all-boys boarding school, and when you're very, very pretty and you're in an all-boys school and you're in a boarding house with 90 other boys and you all shower together and you all live together, it wasn't a great teenagehood. It was terrible. It was vile, and it was a daily case of extreme abuse from the school system plus the other boys, and then of course you get it from your community as well. And it was just constant. But my mum got me a book called "Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway." I never read the book, and I still haven't read it to this day because the title was enough for me.
Yeah, wow.
When you asked the question, did I have fear? Of course I had fear. I was absolutely petrified. I knew that I was going to blow up my life.
Yeah.
But it was only a couple of years before that I'd planned a very deliberate end of times for me. I traveled the world. I went to 80 countries. I did everything that I wanted to achieve in my life. And I was at peace to go. And then I came across the idea of being gay is actually okay. So I really embraced this idea of feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And during the process, of going into Big Brother, I was bashed and left for dead, and my face was completely mangled, and then I came up against the system of the police and community attitudes, and was like, holy shit, there is a bigger thing here than just me. And that's when I realized, like, if I was so willing to end my life only a couple of years before, because I just couldn't do it anymore, maybe I could blow up my life and do some good for others so that they didn't go through the incredible hell that I went through in my teenage years in boarding school, and the incredible hell that I went through as a young jackaroo, and then a farmhand, and then a farm manager. And then also the incredible hell of just my own family. I mean, I've got 10 siblings, my own family absolutely thinking the most evil thing on this planet was a gay human. To think about all the terrible things that we come up against as humans. And that was their definition of evil. So it was feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And as someone who had relied on God and relied on their country and relied on the bush and relied on dogs and relied on all these other things to get me through every single, sometimes minute by minute, for once I decided to rely on myself. And like, no, those three fingers are pointing at you right now. So every time I did have that fear in the process, but then when I went on the show and came out behind all of those television screens and walked on stage with Gretel, and there was thousands of people screaming and cheering, and then it dawned on me, because I came from behind all these television screens, which was this massive big wall before you go out on the stage, I realised this is the moment, David, that you are feeling the fear, and you've just got to do it anyway. Just take one step at a time. You're going to get over there. You're going to listen to what Gretel says. You're going to reply to what Gretel says, and then you're going to keep taking steps. And then you go down this massive gangplank with all these people on the sides. And I didn't know if they would love me, hate me, or do what had recently happened to me, bash me to death, or be like my family and my community, just want me dead and do whatever they could to encourage that uptake of suicide. So it was every moment I was petrified, but every moment I just breathed and I took a step closer and closer to that goal. And look, I had a plan of, maybe a few weeks revealing my sexuality. Life happens, right? And Camilla, she fell for me, and it's like I couldn't, in all good conscience, allow that to happen. And it was only three came out, I think, or it was in the first week. So it was very much so a case of I can't cause any pain. And she's going to feel pain if I leave it one more day. And so that was the hardest. And bizarrely, we did this speed dating thing. And how I'd ended up on Big Brother was I was actually gay speed dating. I went to a gay speed dating thing back before we had swipe right apps. In Brisbane, and I got drunk and missed my flight and whatever back in Brisbane, which is why I ended up at the auditions. And it was just bizarre that the universe had conspired to this one moment that said, this is you.
This is your moment.
You feel the fear and do it anyway. And then I revealed my sexuality at that point, and the response was nothing to what I thought. Like it was really powerful in the house. I mean, on television it was huge, and it rocked Australia, and we still have the echoes and the ricochets going on now, 16, 17 years later.
But people celebrated you in the house. I remember that scene.
I did not expect it.
Everyone just ran up to you and hugged you. And
it was crazy, and it was raw and it was authentic. It was, you had a Muslim refugee to this country who really embraced it. You had every type of Australian was in that room. And then you also had a girl who had fallen for me, and then she felt like a fool. And there was so much going on that so many people could relate to. And that was the beauty of Big Brother. That was the beauty of reality TV back then. It was raw and it was authentic and it was real, and people could find themselves in that room. And what would I do? How would I? But it was all live, and it was all happening in the moment. So people were along with the journey. And I think so many Australians, I mean, whatever it was, 2-3 million people that were watching, were able to question their own feelings around, would I celebrate this guy? Or would I be like, you're disgusting now, I can't even turn this shit off.
Yeah.
But it created conversations in the household, be it in the lounge room, bedroom, be people watching on their mobiles, because, you know, that was the first time that watch anything on their mobiles. So it was just able to really create a conversation and a space for people to question what were their feelings around someone else's sexuality.
Yeah. And we love that.
Yeah.
It's someone else's sexuality.
It's crazy. Something that is nothing to do with you. Everyone has all these feelings about. Yeah. But
And whatever they are, I mean, if it's celebration or if it's revulsion or if it's what about me? How does this impact me? How does your sexuality impact me? So there was so many dynamics, which is what we all go through, right? I mean, when anyone reveals their sexuality or their feelings of any kind, whatever that looks like, people are impacted. And again, I suppose as mature adults and as Australia has matured, it's like, how does that impact me really? Really? Then we can go, this is probably something that we can celebrate, someone else's existence.
Yeah.
Not because good or bad, but just because it is, and everyone has intrinsic value, right? And we've come a long way as a country since then that we now do celebrate people's value just for who they are, the miracle of their existence. And it's not a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, being gay is just a thing, right?
It's just a thing. Yeah. My favorite thing that you kind of said was that whether people spoke about it being good or bad or however they thought about it, it was the fact that you were on national TV starting that conversation to hopefully create a better world for us in the community.
And as you said as well, like, it's so mind-boggling to believe that even today, like, we've in Australia taken all these steps forward, but we're still not quite there. But, you know, we're saying there's war going on in the world and people are more worried about two consenting adults loving each other when people, women, children, men, families are being bombed in other countries. Like, it absolutely blows my mind.
It baffles us, I think.
Yeah. But it's a conversation that I'm so glad that's still going on, because it's an endless conversation. Parents will have children and have to go through the different journeys of the expectations of their child. My mother's expectation was that she was going to have a white wedding and she would have a son that would take on the farm and would produce children that would take on the farm and produce, you know, we've got these tram lines that we're supposed to be on. And then when people get off it, regardless of if it's 1773 or if it's 2073, you know, like it really is a conversation that will evolve and continue to evolve. So I'm glad that we do it. And we are complex creatures, right? We can acknowledge that the neighbours are having an argument and we don't have to focus on that argument. And just like with, you know, the terrible things that are happening around the world, we can acknowledge those things, but we can also acknowledge that other stuff's happening at the same time. But also it's just a conversation about how does it impact me? And that conversation is one that you should have internally, but it is important to have it externally as well, right? Because that's how we humans make sense of the world, by externalizing. That's why we have conversation, right? You know, it's our ability to make sense of the world.
Yeah. Going back to sorry.
If we stay in our own heads, we do go cray. So I feel this constant value in having the conversations, because it allows, I mean, one hateful person can trigger in hundreds, and if not found, love and connection. So there is still value in those people that say hateful things, you know, and that's the beauty of a story I heard not that long ago where someone was called a fucking faggot. And of people that said, hey, that's not right, that's not cool, you know, because that's the conversations that we have to have. And then that other person is like, oh, okay, that's not cool. Oh, okay, right. That person's sexuality doesn't affect me. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like a slow education. It's like sometimes we don't want to have those conversations, but if we can change the mindset of one person, then maybe they can go on to change one or two people. It's like a flow-on effect, and hopefully it can be mostly positive.
Yeah, if we are allowed to live our own lives without hurting others, that's positive, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly.
Absolutely. One thing I wanted to, going back to coming out in the Big Brother house, because you didn't know how that was going to be taken when you did you have a plan in your head of, oh, if they don't take this the way, or if they don't take this positively, what am I going to do?
No. That's the different. I suppose that's the thing about courage and stupidity. It is exactly the same thing.
Same
You've
thing,
got
yeah.
same effort. It is really just the outcome that decides whether it was courageous or stupid, right?
That's true, yeah.
Jumping off a cliff, is it courageous or is it stupid? Coming out, is it courageous or is it stupid? It's really the outcome that decides the definition. No, I didn't have a plan. I just felt the fear and did anyway. And I knew that I needed someone to do that. I knew that I needed someone to have the conversation. I knew that I needed someone to be that ordinary human that was not an extraordinary person, that was not a sports person. Because, I mean, I was at school when Ian Roberts came out, and that rocked the world. And it's quite sad that he wasn't taken or embraced. But that's what people can do when you've got people that are up on View, with Poppy syndrome of Australia. I was an ordinary person, and I think that's what Australia needed at that time, was just an ordinary bloke who had nothing special about him. I was just, an Aussie farmer. I looked a certain way, I acted a certain way, which was typical of, what we saw as Heartland Australia. So I was the right person to do the right task and have the right conversation and initiate it at the right time. And I look back with a lot of pride. But I kid you not, I had the biggest breakdown straight after I came out. That night, I realised the gravity of the situation. And that, what about my mum? How is my mum going to be treated? And that just destroyed me. And it's I've seen the episode where I do break down in Big Brother's diary room. And I suppose it's more indicative about the person, right? That's indicative of Dave when Dave was 26, that his first thought was to feel the fear and do it anyway for the community, for little Dave that had been through hell. But then he was like, oh, shit, what about my mom? How are people going to treat my mom? How are people going to treat my family? This isn't just about me. Holy shit, does impact others.
Yeah, there's a ripple effect.
I didn't take into account beforehand. Not one in that entire few months leading up to doing this thing, not once did I think about how it would impact on my mum or my family. But then once I'd done it, then I'm like, holy shit, what have I done to my mum? And I didn't know the answer to that until many months later. And that was the biggest head that you could go through as a young man who was finding himself in the world as an adult, 26, was, holy shit, what about my family? And I didn't know until I came out that if my family loved me or hated me, and they'd gone through the process. I mean, many of my brothers had said to my mum that that's it, he's out of the family. He's going to be ostracised. We'll never talk to him again. But that was the conversation that triggered my mum to say, whoa, because I think she probably would have agreed with that. But when it was said to her by her own son about her other son, she's like, but he's my son as much as you're my son.
Yeah.
Powerful. So that's what I'm returning to about this idea that sometimes terrible things that are said can trigger thoughts in people that are actually really compassionate and lead to connection. And that's what happened in my family. Was my father was told by so many men in our region how proud they would be if that was their son. And he'd never had that thought. He'd always thought that the most disgusting thing on this planet and all gay things should be shot and dead and hung, drawn and quartered. To hear that other men, people that he saw as equals, would then suggest to him that there's pride that used him. And then with my mum, when she was hearing her own son saying, that's it, he's disgusting, he's gone. That triggered in her this compassion of, no, wait a second. So these are all the conversations that I think are so powerful that had happened around me in my own life. But I was very afraid, and it really did my head in, because when you don't know how do people respond to you, and we as humans really rely on other people's points of view.
Yeah.
I don't anymore. I'm a very, very different person. I can look back on the day back then as a very different person who did have fear but was so ballsy to do that.
Yeah,
but right
incredibly
now,
ballsy.
I wouldn't be too worried about the impact of my actions on others, because it's my journey, and that's where I am now in my life.
Yeah, that's so highly commendable.
And beautiful.
And yeah, you paved the way for other people to come out to their families and feel power about that and not feel fear. Because if this guy on national television, who everyone thinks represents the straight white man, can do it and be embraced and be celebrated, then I can too. And I think that's such a powerful message.
It is, really.
And yeah, you're creating change. And, the saying is change starts at home. And you really took that and you went, yeah,
into
change
everyone's
starts with
home.
me. Yeah, you took change into everyone's home, and something insanely celebrated about that. That kind of leads me to my next question: is after the first stint on Big Brother and life after that, obviously, when you're a person on television and you're on reality TV, you suddenly have a platform, and you presented you're such a humble, down to earth person. So everyone in Australia really identified with that in you, and so you come out having a platform and a voice and people who want to listen. So what are some other positives and maybe some negatives that came out of that?
Yeah, so a lot of negatives, because I was very politically active. I had been since I was 16.
Wow.
I pretty much so got booted out of any positions of authority that I had in political party. I was federal council, and I got kicked out of that because they just couldn't have an openly gay man, even though so many people in the political apparatus are gay, like disproportionately so. That was terrible. It ended my political aspirations, because I really realised that it wasn't time to be in the tent. So I kind of thought, well, okay, I'll leave the tent and I'll do other things instead. And then look, for my own personal life, it was terrible. It feels really ungrateful to say this, but I couldn't go anywhere with my friends because the impact on people was so intense that people couldn't control themselves. I couldn't get fuel without being mobbed. I couldn't go to a restaurant. Like, that was just not impossible. That was impossible. I mean, I remember being in Moree, flying into Moree, and my mum came down and picked me up, which our farm's a few hours away, and being in a KFC, grabbing a feed after the flight with my mum. There would have been 50 or 60 people just turn up in the KFC, all the staff. Everyone wanted to sell like a photo and wanted to chat and wanted to say kind things, but I lost my own personal anything. So I ended up just going back to my farm, and also my love life was just absolutely impossible. I got to a point for many years where my only option to be with someone was to go to a foreign country, because there was just this big cloud around who I was, and because I was so impactful for especially gay men lives and their own situation, so many conversations were had around me and them, there was just too much to be able to have a genuine connection from me as a living, breathing human to them as a living, breathing human. So it was years and years and years before I could have a genuine connection with someone here in Australia. And, most of my relationships ever since have always been with foreigners, because there's just too much. Because sense. I know it sounds.
Yeah.
No,
No,
it
it's-
makes sense.
I think that's the thing with being on reality television, right? You are presenting yourself to the world, and then suddenly everyone thinks that they know you, and they think they know you on such a personal level, especially when they're seeing you on programs like Big Brother. It's day-to-day life. They're seeing you in what would be perceived as your day-to-day life with these strangers. So we have this,
Right? Like, I mean, you genuinely have a relationship with someone on reality
yeah.
TV.
Yeah,
Whether
exactly.
I was talking so much for the years afterwards about mental health issues, and I was talking so much about connection and rural and regional Australia, and trying to connect the city with the country, plus gay people, of course. So many people have an invested relationship with me, but it was a lot of people with one person, and it was very, very overwhelming. And so I very much so retreated back to my farm and back to a quiet as possible life. But there was still this responsibility that I suppose people kept hoisting upon me. It's like, well, you did this, you jumped up on the spotlight, you now owe it that you've got to keep this going. And it's like, well, can't other people do it?
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of did go quiet and would only come out of the farm, I suppose, so to speak, to really push for the continuation of the advocacy, especially around the return of our rights as Australians, but also during the referendum, not the referendum, but the plebiscite on our instance. So I would really come out for those things, but other than that, I just was like, oh, I'd love to be able to have a genuine connection with someone that isn't clouded with all this stuff. But that's the reality that I created for myself, and the reality that I have to live with. But it's still ongoing to this day, like, I mean, and I'm not ungrateful for it, but I do miss the idea that I can have just genuine relationships.
Yeah. You miss that
that's
sense of privacy, essentially, sometimes.
One of the first questions that Gretel asked me was, are you looking for love? Look under the couch. Here I am still looking after all this time, because there is these difficulties of this stuff, when I am in a relationship, even if it is with a foreigner who doesn't know any of my backstory, can just connect with me, then, we're always, whenever we go out, people are always coming up to say g'day and such kind and genuine things. But it can be really
impactful.
Overwhelming.
Yeah. And then it's kind of like, didn't really sign up for this. Yeah. After the show and all the subsequent things that I've done, but I wouldn't change it for the world at all, because I love living in an Australia where anyone can be who they are and feel safe, because there's enough people around that will counter any hateful action or argument or behaviour, which wasn't pre-2006, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
I think in saying that, being such a public figure and then finding that you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, and obviously starting those conversations, what then made you decide to go back to Big Brother in 2022 for All Stars?
What a thing, right? Yeah, I was like, never again. So I'd started a youth organisation to work with young people, and I've been working with young people since I was 20 on my station and many other ventures that I've had, just doing what I can to give young people and the opportunities that I received and the guidance that I received from many good people. But I was struggling because people didn't want to talk about youth crime. People didn't want to know about it because just lock them up, so it doesn't matter what advocacy I did around raising the age of jailing children, or raising the amount of support that is given to young children, or the guidance that is given to young children that have lost all of that from their family unit or from their social group, or whatever it is that is allowing them to not feel safe and therefore have to move to a place like a gang or carry a knife or do any of these things that allows a young person going through their teenage years, which is very confusing for anyone, let alone someone without the support and guidance that many of us take for granted. So I started this youth organisation, but I was struggling, man. Like I I couldn't get support. I couldn't get donations. I worked 7 days a week. And, I was having kids try and stay safe by dropping in, and then we'll take them on camps to get them out of whatever shitty situation they were in, to really give them that solid break so they could learn to breathe and feel safe, so they didn't have to be violent, they didn't have to be abusive, they didn't have to react to the world, they could just be in the world and feel like they belong just for who they are. They didn't have to be some big, crazy, nasty, unkind, stabbing, violent, trying to seek control by abusing others, be they boys or girls. But that's what humans do, right? When you don't have control or safety, you need to exert it. And so I was really struggling. And I did a couple of media things, and then we got the support. And it's like, shit, Dave, you've got to do this again. You've got to on reality TV and have a conversation with people and say, hey, guys, there's this big thing that's growing in Australia right now, and it's called youth without purpose, youth without direction, and it is only going to get worse unless we do something about it. And this is 5 years ago, and you know from your
what's
own
happening
experience,
how prevalent it is right now,
right. So I went back on Big Brother. They asked me, and I was slightly trepidatious, but then I was like, I asked for this. I was like, shit, I've got to get on a reality TV show and do this. And so when the phone call came, as much as the trepidation of, I don't want that again, because I've just started to get my life back after 15, 16 years, I was like, shit, this is feel the fear and do it anyway. This is to really have a conversation with Australia about the youth issues. And then there are solutions. We've just got to embrace those solutions. We can't just keep chucking money at a problem, or we can't just chucking kids in prison, or we can't just keep kicking kids out of the classroom and expecting the problem to go away, because it only grows, right? And so that's why I went on a second time, was really just to promote. And it wasn't about getting the conversation on the TV show, because TV's changed. And the eyeballs on the show, I think, with the catch up on the apps, plus the actual eyeballs on the shows that are heavily edited. Now TV's changed. I think we were getting around 1 million, which is thing compared to the 26 million Australians. It was radio interviews, it was the paper interviews, it was the podcast, it was all the other conversations that I could have to promote this idea that if we give kids purpose, belonging, mastery, and a sense of independence, we can have a country that's free of this youth crime problem that is just going to explode soon. Let's do it now. So that's why I went back on it.
Yeah,
That's
and so
incredible.
that's talking about your youth program, Rough Track, right? So that's where that idea came from, to try and give these kids a purpose so that they didn't have to turn to violence, essentially, to feel like they belonged.
Yeah. If you feel that you have no value, and people keep telling you that you're worthless or useless, you believe it, and then you create this loop of I'm useless, I'm shit, I'm nothing. And then you make sure that everyone agrees with you, because that's the narrative that you are creating, because something happened to you, but then it just keeps manifesting itself. And then, of course, until that stone keeps rolling until it crashes. And that's when kids end up in prison or worse. So it was really about advocating for those young people that I was working with 7 days a week. And I was putting them on shows. Like, we were going to country shows, we're going to all the Royals, any big show that I could get them on stage and say, hey, people, these kids are amazing. Give them a dog, give them responsibility, give them purpose, give them love, like douse them in love, douse them in responsibility, douse them in the idea that they have intrinsic value and they don't need to act something that they're not to fit in.
Yeah.
Well, then we can celebrate that. So that was the purpose, and it really worked. I mean, we grew the organisation fantastically. I mean, in the period that I was there, we had over 150 young people come through our programs.
Wow.
I worked in the
That's
prison
incredible.
right across the country, from Tasmania to Western Australia, all the way to far north Queensland, and took the kids on connection to country and community trips and was able to allow them to expand their horizons, but with a dog by them. And the moment someone sees a kid with a dog who is dressed well, and I dress them in bright orange, I'm like, I wanted people to see these kids, to stop looking for the essays and look for these great Aussie kids that have a dog. And as soon as anyone sees a dog, they're instantly
love.
their body.
Yeah.
These kids were experiencing for the first time people being kind and pleasant to them, rather than, oh, that kid's probably got a knife in his little saddy bag. That kid's got, the hoodie all over. They didn't have all that apparatus, so they weren't having that story reinforced in their brain that they were shit, that they were worthless, people hated them. They were now getting this new story of, wow, aren't you amazing that you've got that dog walking so calmly by your side? Aren't you amazing that your dog did all these incredible things on stage? Aren't you amazing? And sometimes for some of these kids, they'd never heard that before.
Yeah.
But ringing in their ears day after day and show after show and journey after journey, whenever they got out of the bus or the truck or the ute, people would reinforce this. They changed because the narrative in their head changed, because constantly reinforced that you're a piece of shit, that you are worthless, that you are a bane in society. The best thing for you is to get out. And we all know this, and it's the oldest adage in the book that if a child doesn't feel the warmth of a village, burn it down. My job for the last 5 years really was about saying, let's put these kids on stage and celebrate when they do make their own choices to do better, not incarcerate them and force them out of society. And then as soon as that incarceration is finished, chuck them back into society. And then the only thing that they need to do to feel safe again is to do a crime.
Yeah, because then they get chucked back in. Yeah, exactly.
It's not rocket science, but that's one of the things that for 5 years I have been bunging on about.
Yeah.
But there's only so much you can take, and there's only so much you can do. And it's now a really successful organisation. It's going really, really well in Sydney. And so now I'm stepping back from that and ready for the next journey.
The next exciting journey.
Yeah.
I think that's so beautiful. Like you said, everyone essentially just wants to feel valued, wants to feel loved and feel like they have a purpose.
And you're providing some self-belief because, without that, what is purpose? If we don't feel value in ourselves, we're going to act like shit. And then there's no empathy. So then we treat other people like shit because it just overflows. There's nowhere for that hatred to go.
Yeah.
And it all starts with ourselves. If we feel valued, we're going to, want to make other people feel valued. If we feel like shit, we want to make other people feel like shit. It's that simple, really, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, if you're hurt, you need to spread that hurt. When COVID really taught us that we need to take responsibility for ourselves, and I love that about COVID. Like, I look for silver linings on everything, but COVID was about, hey, we've got to take responsibilities for ourselves. Our own body is what we're responsible for. Our ability to transfer diseases to others is up to us. And I took so much out of COVID, and especially in my youth work. I was like, guys, we if you're feeling unwell, how much do you want that unwellness to go to others? Some kids, when they first come into the program, I don't fuck. Spit on someone straight away. They just got so much anger and hatred that has been put inside them, not just by themselves, but sometimes by others. But they need that to come out. And that's why hurt people. But then again, valued people value people.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we find.
That's awesome.
Hey? And you're a dad. You have kids. So, how did that come about? And, tell us the story.
Oh, there's some great stories there. Look, I have always wanted children. I've always wanted to be married and be in love and be able to adore someone and build them up. And then when I've got a stable situation, support children. That didn't happen for me. Then also the right to give blood and help others through the giving of blood, which so many people get to do, and so many people need it, heavens above, for so many different things. Because, we're not allowed to give blood as gay men in Australia, or men who have sex with men in Australia. So I could give my genetics, and I didn't do anything to get really good genes, long-lived genes, very healthy genes. That was just happened to be the lottery of life.
Yeah.
And when when the time came or the conversation occurred with friends of mine that were stable, that had the amount of support around them, well, then, I was a donor dad and created 5 beautiful, amazing, well-loved and well-balanced children. And it has been the greatest thing. The
Yeah.
greatest.
That's so beautiful.
You mentioned in the intro that I've done some cool stuff. Nothing comes closer to creating a life.
Yeah.
Except for when that life is loved, and that life then gives out love. And as I've noticed, my kids, the eldest is now 8, give love back, and even if it's just to an insect, or if it's the kindness of a smile to a stranger. And of course, they all love dogs, which is just even better. But when I see that love go out, that is just a reflection on all the beauty that is and world, and it's
You're gonna
look
make
at
me
me.
cry.
I'm just nothing comes close to it. And when you're a gay man in the world that we spoke about pre-2006, the idea of being a dad, the idea of being in a relationship that is valued as everyone else's relationship, who is straight and normal, was just so alien. But to actually live and to now be a dad, and to be able to go through the memories and have a conversation with a little David and say, no, your dreams were real, and I got to realise them, and you do have amazing children, and they have the most amazing families that love them, and you get to see them and be part of that love. But most importantly, you get to see them share the love out of themselves to the rest of the world. Like, those memory conversations with your own self are some of the most wonderful, because I spent, from 8 really, when I started to think maybe there's something wrong with me, all the way through to when I finally came out to the world at 26. That's a huge chunk of life, and a very pivotal chunk of life. I can go back and have conversations with those 8-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 15-year-olds, and say, oh, it's all good now. It's all good. It was worth it. It was worth unloading the gun. It was worth stepping back from the cliff. It was worth turning the wheel of the ute and not hitting that tree. It was all worth it. And if anyone's listening to this and they go through any of those motions of it's not worth it, I guarantee you it is. It is so worth living. It is so worth just taking a breath. It is so worth taking the foot off the pedal, and it is so worth just getting out of a situation that is too much and having a breather, and then coming back at it a different way. And I've come back at life a different way. I didn't have a wife and the kids and the farm and the idea that my mum always dreamed of me. I had the third way, and the third way is exactly what I got to create. And there is so much power in that I've got to live my life slightly differently to what the expectations were, but I've got to experience all of those things that I didn't think were at all remotely
possible for you.
No.
Yeah, and that's why we all do what we do, like all 3 of us, to, hopefully someone who is listening realizes they're not alone and that they can, take a breather.
Podcast, right? The conversations that you are having with each other and with your guests, but most importantly with your dear listener, is hear that, hey, it's okay.
Yeah.
And it'll get better.
Yeah.
It's bloody awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
I think a lot of that is, when you are feeling alone or you're feeling isolated or you feel like there is no way, it's about there is a tribe out there of people with open arms that is waiting for you. And once you take steps to find that tribe, instead of, feeling like it's not worth that journey to find them, you will be embraced, you will be celebrated. And, life might not be what social and hetero norms might seem, but you can live a good life that you create for yourself. You just need to find your tribe.
Yep. And if you can't find your tribe, create one.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. Before we go, Dave, I just want to touch on the fact that the next thing that you're doing is Wigs for Kids. So you're going to shave those luscious locks that Australia knows you for.
My niece plaited my hair before she went to school this morning, and big long plait, so it's not all out and everywhere.
How
but
beautiful.
They measured it last night because I'm like, oh, Rocky, you need 20, because I think we're cutting it on the 16th down at the Kids with Cancer Foundation headquarters.
Yeah.
And they need a minimum of 20 centimetres to make a wig for a young person. And so we measured it last night. They got the tape measure. And then it's 33 centimetres. And then my sisters are like, no, that's 33 inches. So I've got like 80 centimetres hair here to hope a wig or a couple of wigs. And because I was emceeing an event, I do a lot of MC work. And I was emceeing an event called the Gold Ribbon Ball. And hearing the stories of parents that have lost their children or are going through cancer treatment with their children and have an end date for their child.
Yeah, wow.
It's one of the most difficult things I have ever experienced. And I was just the bloody MC and I was just going, what can I do? You know, I can't give blood because they need blood for many of the treatments.
Yeah.
Like I can give my MC skills, I can give my advocacy, but there's got to be something tangible that I can do because, you know, that's the old nun in me going, there's 3 solutions, button, you're it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I thought, oh, shit, can I cut my hair? So normally I just shave my hair every couple of years. And I used to send it off to the United States when it was pretty good to make wigs for women with cancer over there. And I had no idea that we did it right here in Australia for little kids.
Wow, yeah.
And but yeah, that's the one thing that I can do, right? So I just kept growing my hair and to try and make as much value out of it as possible. So I haven't cut it at all now, but it will be on the 16th. We're doing it live, and I would really encourage anyone that as I do is moved by the idea that losing your child to a slow, insidious thing like cancer is the worst thing imaginable. I don't think there is any, like when I think about my 5 kids, I mean, what that would be like to lose to an insidious disease that just keeps coming and taking away their life day by day. I just couldn't think of anything worse.
Yeah.
If you can help jump on Kids with Cancer and go to the fundraising page, Dave Graham, and chuck a few dollars that way. I've donated myself. You know, I'm not just cutting my hair. I'm not just one of these people that talks the talk.
Yeah. You're all about action, Dave. We've heard that from you in this podcast episode.
But no, I would really encourage everyone to get behind that campaign. And, you know, I'm asking for people to donate enough money to make 5 wigs for 5 kids. But it's here in Australia. And, I mean, we touched on before about this idea that there are so many big things happening in the world. And I'm always like, bring your world down to something that you can control. And I can control the growing of my hair. I can control me looking after it for these years so that I can cut off enough to make these wigs. And I always encourage people to sometimes think big, but sometimes act small.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
We create the changes that we want sometimes by thinking really, really big, like, oh, what can I do to save the world? Well, I can grow my hair and cut it. And
it's like, what's the first step?
Do the same. But if you don't want to cut your hair because, you know, hair is, like for me, I mean, it's hair. I'm Hercules when it comes to hair. Love my hair. It's just my thing. It's like my blankie or something. I don't know. It wasn't wing. Mum sent me away to boarding school when I was 9, I suppose. That's my problem. It's just my little teddy. But, if I can give the most valuable thing, well, and give a kid that, and you guys have touched on it so much in our conversations, that idea that they're not alone and they don't get seen as different. Because, you know, when you're a little kid with a bald head, everyone looks at you. And we know about kids is they point out any difference.
Oh, anything, Little kids are savage.
Have a neuron exchange.
Yeah.
Are you dying? So
Yeah.
I think we can take away a bit of that, even if it's not coming to them by others, what they're feeling in their own head, so that they can hopefully have a less terrible end of time, if that's what happens, or a less terrible journey so they can survive cancer.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be encouraging all of our listeners. If you're listening to this episode here with Dave, definitely do what you can to donate to Dave's campaign. We will be posting links in the show notes for the episode, and we'll be posting on all of our socials to try and get you as much funding as you can. And
I think this is something that, you know, just quickly is very important to me, as well as someone who, I wasn't a child, but I was 16 as a child. 16 to 20, I lost my hair from similar stuff, from cancer stuff. So I too can't give blood or anything. And I would have killed for anyone to have made a beautiful wig for me.
yeah, so that's coming from a bit of a place for us.
A bit of a personal
as
place
well.
for us, yeah. So
Yeah.
please, guys, if you can donate something, even if it's just $1 to help, anything helps.
Yeah, $1 can go a long way. And as a thank you for joining us today, Dave, we'll be making a sizable donation for your campaign. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So kind.
No, we are absolutely so humbled to have had you join
Yeah.
us today, and for our listeners to get to hear your stories and what's important to you, and, you know, how much you are an advocate for young people and children to grow up in a world where they aren't feared and they aren't hated. And, you know, as you say, change starts at home. Change starts with you. You can make the first step. And, you know, to have that reiterated to people, and you are a public figure since appearing on television. You do have a very big voice, and we're very grateful that you lent that voice to us today. And I guess
Thank you so much.
thank you so much. And this has been a wonderful conversation to have.
I love what you two are doing, because it's exactly the same thing. It's creating conversations so that we can all have a bit more connection, right? And thank you, dear listener, for lending us your ears for this conversation. And go out and have a conversation with someone today to create a connection, whatever that is. And just remember, think big but act small. And we can, just like happened during the plebiscite, because remember, before the plebiscite, there was no way that Australia was going to say yes to the gay marriage. But each person having one conversation with one person with these big ideas, we did it. And we're now in a world where we can be equal to our parents. And that's a beautiful thing.
It really is. And conversations are beautiful things because they can lead to beautiful things. So as Dave said, let's keep the conversation going. Go out and talk to someone today and, you know, learn something about them and make them feel safe. And I think that's all we can ask for in this world, is that we just continue to make positive change. And
a conversation can change someone's day.
yeah, can change someone's life. One conversation can change your life. So with that we have a lot of, you know, power in each other to do that. So let's continue to do that. And Dave, thank you so much for joining us today. We can't wait for this episode to go live, and we can't wait to all band together and see you shave that head. So we'll all be there watching.
I think they're just making me look real long in the tooth, aren't they?
Do you know what's funny? I don't know how much of the comments on Facebook you read, because, you know, they say never to read your comments once you've been on TV. But there was a bit of an argument that you should have got the role of Thor. So take that with you today. Those blessed genetics, you know, people were having that argument. So
I find myself in a gym if I'm to live up to that comment, but okay.
Thanks again, Dave. Have a wonderful day.
Have a good day.
You too. Good on you for doing this. I just love both of you.
Thank you so much.
Inspired me. I love when young people do cool stuff, and thank you for sharing your story about losing your own hair. Like it just reinforces some of these things, because, you know, you sometimes you think, oh fuck, am I being a bit of a wanker? But then you just like, no.
Everything happens for a reason. Everything happens for a purpose. We solely believe.
Yeah.
And the universe has shown you time and time again, essentially, that here you go, here's your purpose. Here's the conversations you need to be having.
Yeah.
100%. Well, thank you, ladies.
No,
Thank you.
thanks,
Have a
Dave.
good day.
You have a wonderful week, and yeah, we'll be with you on that live shave.
Okay, thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
See you, Dave. Thank you.
Bye.
What an episode.
What a man.
What a conversation.
Yeah.
I hope that everyone listening to this episode really took something away from Dave's story. And I think the message there, just to condense it all down to this one sentence, is change starts with us.
Yeah.
We can be the catalyst for change to happen, and we can change one person's life with a conversation.
With a conversation. It's just about starting those conversations. And like we say to you guys every single week, that's what we're here for. We're using this platform to share your guys' stories, to share your conversations.
To start the conversation. So we really hope that you enjoyed this episode with Farmer Dave, because we
certainly did.
We thoroughly enjoyed talking to him. And thank you to Dave again.
Yes, thank you.
And please, everybody, don't forget, if you want to donate to Dave's cause, we've got the links in the show notes. You'll find them on our socials and on Farmer Dave on his socials. Every dollar counts. If you can chuck a few dollars his way, it'll
really help.
Yeah. Let's band together and let's do some good for the community. Because
Farmer Dave is.
yeah. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. It's been a long one, but it's been a great one.
An awesome one.
And this week's outro song is provided by Ella Brosnan, and this is her song Starlight. So see you next week, and remember to
Stay gay, motherfuckers.
Long talks in the car, just me and you. Seen all my scars, now that's the truth. You see me, just me. Taken back to when we were kids. Who would thought we'd end like this? Can you see me? I'm lost to sea without you by my side. I need you, I need you. Need you to guide me at twilight. 'Cause you're my starlight. We used to think the same about life.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Just Gay Stuff. Make sure to follow us at Just Gay Stuff Podcast on all your socials and write to us with your stories at justgaystuffpodcast@gmail.com.